भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Namaskar my dear friends, this is video number 2 on Katha Upanishad. This video starts with chapter number 1. Vajasravas, desiring rewards, performed the Vishwajita sacrifice in which he gave away all his property. He had a son named Naciketas. Vajasravas, the name of a rishi who lived in Vedic times. Rewards to be reaped in a heavenly world after death. Vishwajit, a sacrifice in which the sacrificer is required to give away all his property to the priest and other Brahmins. When the gifts were being distributed, faith entered into the heart of Naciketas, who was still a boy. He said to himself, "Joyless surely are the words to which he goes who give away cows, no longer able to drink, to eat, to give milk, or to cow." Faith. The Sanskrit word Shraddha means an intuitive belief in the existence of a reality underlying the universe. Hence, it also signifies faith in the words of the scriptures and of a qualified perceptor. Both teach the reality of Dharma and the immortality of the soul. Shraddha is an affirmative attitude of mind as opposed to a skeptical and negative one. This basic spiritual virtue includes humility, sincerity, earnestness, single-mindedness, reverence, and an unwavering determination to find out the truth at any cost. Endowed with it, the aspirant does not shrink from any risk or difficulty. Possessed of such faith, Naciketas, as will be seen later, entered the abode of death and spurned all temptations for the sake of truth. The term does not signify a mechanical belief in the words of a man or book. Boy, the word conveys the idea that Naciketas was on the threshold of youth and led the life of a brahmachari. Observing the vow of celibacy and continence, his body and mind were fresh, young, vigorous, and untainted by worldliness. According to the Vedas, such a person is preeminently qualified for the knowledge of Dharma. Evidently, Naciketas' father was giving away only old, decrepit, and useless cow, which would not do any good to their receivers. For making such a gift, he would go to unhappy worlds after death. The first effect of Shraddha on Naciketas was a desire to save his father from suffering. Naciketas thought that as a dutiful son, he must ward off the harmful consequences which would befall his father for giving away useless cows at the sacrifice. For that purpose, he was willing to give up even his own life. Verse number 4. He said to his father, "Father, to whom will you give me?" He said this a second and a third time. Then his father replied, "Unto death I will give me." The rules of this particular sacrifice demanded the giving away of all possessions. The son is a possession of his father. Nachiketa wanted to know to which priest or Brahmin he would be given away. He did not want his father to deviate from truth. Shraddha or faith had created in Nachiketa's mind an unflagging devotion to truth, unto death, etc. Twice the father did not pay any attention to what he considered to be impertinence on the part of the boy. At last he lost his temper and told him to go to death. The father, having once spoken, though in anger, had to be true to his word and sacrifice his son. Nachiketa reflected long on the words of his father and said to himself, verse 5, "Among many I am the first, or among many I am the middlemost, but certainly I am never the last. What purpose of the king of death will my father serve today by thus giving me away to him?" Many disciples or sons. First, the best disciple or son anticipates the wishes of the teacher or father and fulfills them. Middlemost, such a disciple awaits his superior's expressed wishes before he acts. Last, the inferior disciple or son does not carry out the command of his superior even when ordered. What purpose, etc. Evidently, it was not the real intention of the father to his son die. He had uttered the words in anger. Nachiketa realized in no time his father's plight but did not want him to go back on his word. In the meantime, the father too had begun to lament his hasty statement. The son consoled him. Verse 6, Nachiketa said, "Look back and see how it was with those who came before us, and observe how it is with those who are now with us. A mortal ripens like corn, and like corn he springs up again." How it was, etc. Nachiketa indicated that neither his forefathers nor the righteous people of his own time ever deviated from truth, and that only wicked people practiced falsehood. Ripens. When corn is ripe, either it falls to the ground or it is cut away. Springs up. When it is sown again the next season. No real or permanent benefit is derived from falsehood. Men are mortal. They follow the cycle of birth and death. Like corn, when corn is ripe, it is cut away and garnered. It is sown again the next season. Then it springs up as new plants. Therefore, Nachiketa asked his father to follow truth and send him to the abode of death. Rishi Vajasravas sent his son to Yama, the king of death, to keep his word. When Nachiketa arrived, Yama was away. He spent 3 nights there without taking food. When Yama returned, he was informed of it by his ministers and others. They said to him, verse 7, "Verily, like fire, a Brahmin guest enters a house. The householder pacifies him by giving him water and a seat. Bring him water, O king of death." Fire. If a Brahmin is not shown proper hospitality, he consumes like fire the happiness of the family to which he has come as a guest. Brahmin, because the Brahmins were the custodians of the spiritual culture of the Indo-Aryans, they were treated with great respect in Hindu society. Guest respect for a guest is a time-honored custom in India. He is regarded by the Hindus as a veritable manifestation of God. Giving him etc. In a hot country like India, water is offered to a guest for washing his feet, then a seat and then food. The harm that befall a householder for being inhospitable to a guest was described by Yama's ministers. Verse number 8. The Brahmin who dwells in a house fasting destroys that foolish householder's hopes and expectations. The reward of his intercourse with pious people, the merit of his kindly speech, the good results of his sacrifices and beneficial deeds, and his cattle and children as well. Hopes for wished for objects unseen but attainable, such as enjoyments of heaven. Expectations for objects both seen and attainable, such as wealth, horses, cattle, children. Beneficial deeds, works of public welfare such as the digging of wells, the planting of fruit trees by the roadside, and the building of highways and rest houses. The meaning is that a guest must under no circumstances be slighted. Being thus addressed by his ministers, the king of death approached Nachiketa and worshipped him. Verse number 9. Yama said, O Brahmin, salutation to you. You are a venerable guest and have dwelt in my house 3 nights without eating. Therefore, choose now 3 boons, one for each night. O Brahmin, may all be well with me. Choose. The king of death knew that Nachiketa would be gracious enough to forgive him this unintentional offense, yet he wanted to please his guest in every way. As the first boon, Nachiketa asked Yama to remove his father's worry and bring about his happiness. Verse number 10. Nachiketa said, O death, make Gautama, my father, be calm, cheerful, and free from anger towards me. May he recognize me and greet me when I shall have been sent home by you. This I chose as the first of the 3 boons. Calm, free from worry regarding Nachiketa's welfare in the abode of death. The boon was granted. Verse number 11. Yama said, through my favor, your father, Odalaki Aruni, will recognize you and again towards you as he was before. After having seen you freed from the jaws of death, he will sleep peacefully at night and bear no anger against you. Bear no anger, etc. The father had been angry at what he thought to be Nachiketa's impudent conduct at the time of the sacrifice. As the second boon, Nachiketa asked Yama to teach him the sacrifice that enabled its performer to go to Brahmaloka and enjoy immortality. Verse number 12 and 13. Nachiketa said, in the heavenly world there is no fear whatsoever. You, O death, are not there, and no one is afraid of old age, leaving behind both hunger and thirst, and out of the reach of sorrow. All rejoice in heaven. You know, O death, the fire sacrifice which leads to heaven. Explain it to me, for I am full of faith. The inhabitants of heaven attain immortality. This I ask as my second boon. Heavenly world. The phrases refer to Brahmaloka, fear due to sickness, old age, and so on. The king of death has power only over the inhabitants of earth and none whatsoever over those of Brahmaloka. Immortality. Relative immortality compared to the life of people on earth. The life enjoyed by the inhabitants of Brahmaloka is very long, yet it is very short from the standpoint of Brahma. According to the Vedas, those who dwell in Brahmaloka are free from old age and death, living on nectar and ambrosia. They do not experience thirst and hunger. They are not victims of sorrow, fear, and the other limitations of earthly life. Verse number 14. Yama said, I know well the fire sacrifice which leads to heaven, and I will explain it to you. Listen to me. Know this fire to be the means of attaining heaven. It is the sport of the universe. It is hidden in the hearts of the wise. Sport, etc. One form of the fire is Virat, which is the totality of the material body seen in the universe. Virat is the body of the world person. Hearts. The secret of this sacrifice is revealed only to the intellects of wise men. The intellect is usually located by Vedantic mystics in the heart. Non-dualistic. Vedanta states that Brahma or pure consciousness is free from attributes and actions. Through Maya it appears to be associated with attributes. Then it becomes known as Saguna Brahma, who is the creator, preserver, and destroyer of the universe. Saguna Dharma roughly corresponds to the personal god of the dualist religions. He is also known according to his different aspects and functions by such epithets as Hiranyagarbha, the golden egg, Brahma, the world soul, Sutratma, the Atma or soul which holds together all things like the thread of a garland, Agni, the fire, Prana, life, and Virat, the cosmic person. He is immanent in the creation, but at the same time he is the Lord of Brahmaloka, the highest plane in the relative universe. Those fortunate human beings who worship Saguna Brahma with whole-souled devotion go after death to Brahmaloka and enjoy their great felicity on account of their participation in the cosmic life of Brahma. They live there till the end of the cycle and afterwards, together with Brahma, realize their identity with Brahma or the Absolute according to the Vedic seers. Two other classes of men, namely those who have performed 100 horse sacrifices and those who have lived all their lives as brahmacharis without entering into the life of sannyasa, also go to Brahmaloka. On account of their imperfect knowledge, however, they return to earth after the enjoyment of the fruit of their meritorious actions is over. Other householders who perform the prescribed duties of life and participate in humanitarian works go after death to a lower heaven called Chandraloka and enjoy celestial happiness. After the exhaustion of the results of their actions, they return to earth. The inhabitants of the heavenly worlds are called devas or gods. Though the happiness in Brahmaloka or any other heaven far exceeds that of earth, it is nevertheless a relative happiness. The immortality enjoyed by the gods is also relative. True immortality, as taught in the Upanishads, is attained here on earth through the knowledge of the self. According to Vedanta, earth, heaven, and the other planes are different manifestations of Brahma or pure consciousness in time and space. The fire sacrifice explained. Verse number 15. Yama then told him about the fire, which is the source of the worlds, and what bricks were to be gathered for the altar, and how many, and how the sacrificial fire was to be lighted. Naciketas too repeated all this as it had been told him. Then Yama, being pleased with him, spoke again. Source fire in the form of Virat is the first to be created at the beginning of the cycle. What bricks, etc. That is to say, what kind of bricks. How many? The number of bricks is 720, which is the same as the number of days and nights in a year of 360 days. The king of death wanted to grant Naciketas a supplementary boon. Verse number 16. High-souled death, being well pleased, said to Naciketas, I will now give you another boon. This fire shall be named after you. Take also from me this many-colored chain. Well pleased, because Naciketas had demonstrated that he had all the qualifications of a true disciple. Many-colored chain, a chain of precious stones of many colors, or the words may mean the knowledge of karma or action which leads to diverse results. The king of death then described the fruit of the Naciketas sacrifice. He who has performed 3 times this Naciketas sacrifice, having been instructed by the three, and also has performed his 3 duties, overcomes birth and death. Having known this fire born of Brahma, omniscient, luminous, and adorable, and realized it, it attains supreme peace. 3 times. The words in the text may also mean having studied, learned, and performed the sacrifice, instructed by the three. One is instructed by one's mother before being invested with the sacred, third by one's father while studying the Vedas, and finally by one's teacher. A second meaning is having been instructed in the Vedas and the Smritis and by virtuous men, and a third meaning having acquired knowledge through direct evidence, inference, and scriptures. Knowledge acquired through these means purifies the heart and becomes fruitful. 3 duties. These are study of scriptures, performance of sacrifices, and giving of alms. Luminous. The literal meaning of the word Deva in the text, which is generally translated as God, realized as his own self. Supreme peace. The highest peace in the relative world. The performer of Naciketas sacrifice attains to the plane of Virat or Brahmaloka and becomes a part of Virat, who controls the universe. The discipline by which this exalted position is realized combines knowledge with action. Ultimate liberation, however, is attained only through the knowledge of Brahma. Yama concluded the topic of the Naciketas sacrifice. Verse number 18. He who, having known the three, has performed 3 times the Naciketas sacrifice, throws off even here the chains of death, overcomes grief, and rejoices in heaven. The three, namely the kinds of bricks required for the altar, their number, and the way to light the sacrificial fire, sacrificial fire, as as performed, etc. At the time of the sacrifice, the sacrificer meditates on the fire as on with himself, even here, before the death of the body, change of death, that is to say, vice, ignorance, attachment, hatred, and rest, which makes one a victim of repeated deaths. Rejoice is heaven, in heaven, having attained the status of Virat and participated in his cosmic life. The result of the Naciketas sacrifice one when performed according to the prescribed rule is the attainment of the plane of Virat, where one communes with Saguna Brahma or Brahma with attributes. Yama now was ready to offer Nachiketa the last of his three promised boons. Verse number 19. O Nachiketa is your fire sacrifice which leads to heaven and which you have chosen as your second boon. People will call this fire by your name. Now, O Nachiketa, choose the third boon. Because of his promise to grant three boons to Nachiketa, Yama still considered himself a debtor. Therefore, he asked the boy to select the third boon and absolve him from the debt. The mantra and Brahmana sections of the Vedas, known as the Karmakanda, which deal with sacrifice and other ritualistic actions, lay down various mandatory and prohibitory injunctions. The first two boons asked by Nachiketa fell within the scope of these sections. The Karmakanda does not deal with the true knowledge of the nature of Atma. This is discussed in the Upanishads, which form the Jnana Kanda or philosophical portions of the Vedas. The mandatory and prohibitory injunctions apply only to those who, under the spell of ignorance, associate such as illusory notions with Atma as that it is the doer of actions and that it is the enjoyer of its fruit. Ignorance of the nature of Atma is the cause of samsara or repeated births and deaths in the relative universe. This ignorance can be destroyed with the help of true knowledge, which reveals the identity of the Atma and Brahma and is characterized by an utter absence of illusory superimpositions. The remainder of the Katha Upanishad is devoted to a discussion of this knowledge, the bestower of the highest good. Even the felicity of Brahmaloka, which was attained through the second boon, is not the same as the true immortality. This is made possible only through the self-knowledge sought in the third boon. Thus, the story leads to a discussion of Atma. Verse number 20. Nachiketa said, there is this doubt about a man when he is dead. Some say that he exists, others that he does not. This I should like to know, taught by you. This is the third of my boons. I will discuss all this Atam Vidya and Brahma Vidya in the third video. So I consider this video to be completed at this stage. So the Atmic knowledge should continue in the same video. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, comment and share the video and subscribe the channel. And in the Video number 3 on Katha Upanishad. I will start with the Naciketas, third boon. So, Nachiketa and Lord Yama will discuss the Atamgyana. Okay, thank you. Namaskar.